skies look gray to me, and trouble begins.
Nadja, welcome back.
You have to explain now what happened.
Well, apologies for the delayed start, or what might look like a delayed start. We spent the last 15 minutes happily going along doing our interview, and it wasn't actually streaming to Facebook, it seems, which is very peculiar. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but it is working now because I can see it on Facebook. So apologies, and hopefully you can still enjoy this, even though we're saying all exactly the same things again. Anyway, welcome, Nadja. Great to chat again. Nadja has been a really key and crucial part to the making of the album Songs and Stories, which in large part, I guess she's had the biggest part of any non-musician on the record, because the musicians all play their instruments and they're all brilliant, but Nadja has done almost everything else, from the graphic design on the album cover, the kind of formatting in the liner notes, the videography, the website, the back-end sort of digital stuff on the store that I don't really know how to describe in any better way than that. So Nadja, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you ended up doing the everything else.
Yeah, interesting. So when people ask me to describe what I'm doing, I usually say I help musicians focus on the music, because I think it's the best way to sum up, to describe the sort of, call it a penknife of artist support that I do. By the way, thanks for making me wear these. I usually never do, so it's a bit awkward. Makes me feel professional, though.
Yes.
Yeah, so helping artists to focus on the music, it's something that is different for every artist. Every artist needs different support in different areas, and in order to structure it a little bit, I have split it up into 3 areas. What we've now worked on for Songs and Stories, what was probably the fullest creative package I've ever delivered. Call it integrated creative support. So that is in a way the visualization of the music, and in a way the visualization of what the artist wants to communicate for the eyes, which sometimes have to come first before the ears are attached. And you know how that works. Sometimes it really needs a certain look of an album, of a packaging, for it to be picked up and then put on and played and purchased or whatever. So that, if you say the visualization, that really, as you described earlier, encompasses all of this. It's the graphic design, it's the web design, it's the videography, from filming to editing in the end. And that's one large part of what I do every day.
Yeah.
Then there's this sort of second part, which I call ARM, audience relationship management. It's very similar to what I've done in my previous life in marketing communications or marketing strategies, which has a lot to do with how best to reach your audience as an artist. By the way, when I say artist, I talk as much and work as much with artist individuals as well as artist organizations, orchestras, promoters, venues, everything to do with music and probably predominantly jazz. But these ARM concepts that I put together, they have a lot to do with outreach, creating email campaigns, social media strategies, focusing on where your audiences are rather than just spray and pray and trying to reach everybody at the same time, which is crazy stuff. And then the third part, and I've reserved this very much to very close friends of mine who I also work with. A good example is Joe Locke, the vibes player, who I've been working with for years now, and is one of my sort of favorite people in the world. I do artist management for him, and I also do tour support for him. And the reason why that works so well is because we're very similar, and it helps me to always be a couple of steps ahead in terms of supporting him with admin stuff, with planning, with liaising with venues and putting tours together, but also helping him with PR, with connecting the various dots that sort of circle you guys as artists. So that's basically what I do.
Yeah, indeed. And it's been absolutely incredibly helpful for a fairly useless musician like myself, who has very little idea of anything on the kind of graphic design side and so forth, of how it should all be put together and how best to make it look good. And I think, as people will see in a moment from the album art, in fact, let's show them the album art now, because people haven't seen this yet, and I think this is a good first time to reveal it all. I think everyone will agree that they look absolutely fantastic.
Yay!
There it is in full Technicolor.
Can I also say this was the first time ever I've designed an LP packaging?
It's the first time ever I've released a record on LP, so it's a nice. LPs are coming back into fashion a little bit, aren't they?
They are, yeah, absolutely, and I'm loving it. I'm loving having the space to work with.
It's one of those things where, when the music's digital anyway, and most of what people listen to nowadays is digital, you sort of, if you want a physical copy of it, the reason you want it is to have something as a memento. And an LP is a better memento than a CD, because it's bigger, it's kind of grander, it sounds better. It just feels like a better piece of history in a way, or something like that. So I think that probably explains why they're coming back.
It's also something I can very much relate to, because I'm just a tiny bit older than you, and I grew up in the days of buying records in a record shop and putting it on, and while I was listening to the music for the first time, really consuming the album art, the album packaging, including reading every single word in the liner notes and even in the production notes. When I was a teenager, you pick things up and you are so sort of ingrained in that experience, both visually as much as listening to the music, and that's kind of brought me back to that a little bit, because I could see myself as a 12-year-old, pulling these album sleeves apart and really getting into it. Yeah,
I remember the same thing, though. It was CDs for me. The CDs that I had, that when I was younger, when I was maybe sort of 12, 13, I'd listen to them over and over and over and over again, because obviously there wasn't this whole YouTube and whole immense amount of music available to stream at that point. I think LimeWire and those other vaguely illegal ones came along when I was in sixth form. But prior to that point, when I was first learning to play and first getting into jazz, the CDs that I had, I'd listen to them so much and get so into them. And I think that the love of the overall package, and I'd read through the liner notes and everything that you see, I remember every little detail about everything about those albums. And I think that the design element is so important to get that side of things across. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've been very lucky on this project to have such an amazing label.
Yes. And I have to say, in the past, and I've worked with so many labels now, they've always been extremely supportive, and I've always given the artists I work with a huge amount of freedom to express themselves through the packaging. So whenever, and I call it packaging, it sounds horrible, so the design through the album art. We've always been, we always had labels who allowed us to slightly explore different areas and really do what the artist wanted. And with Stunt Records, who we've worked with on this one, they've been absolutely amazing. And the quality of the product is so killing, I think. It looks and feels really good when you actually hold it in your hands, which many of you hopefully will be doing in just under a week's time, as the
album will come out on the 26th of June, as you can see down there. So we should talk a little bit more about the about kind of how this project all came together and how you ended up working on so much of it, because it wasn't exactly a me coming to you and saying, I'm going to need this, and this. It sort of emerged a little bit more organically than that. I think the first time we met, as you corrected me on before, was when you filmed Claire singing at Ronnie's. Claire Martin, of course, the incredible singer who is featured on this album and who introduced the two of us.
Thanks, Claire.
And thank you, Claire. And Claire is the interviewee subject next week, as you'll see. I've saved the star for the final interview, in case you were wondering. But yeah, you were filming us at Ronnie's when we were doing Claire's Shirley Horn project. And
I wasn't filming. I wanted to. That was the initial idea. And then Ronnie said, we are already set up with cameras and everything, so there's no need to have anything external in people's way. But as I was there already, I obviously stuck around, and it was an amazing project to be in the room for.
That project was kind of the inception of this project in a way. It's where I first started working with a lot of the key personnel, like John Mills and the Tippett Quartet, Matt Skelton, the drummer, Claire herself, obviously, and it sort of grew. It almost grew out of that, for which I did a lot of the arranging into something like this. So the first time you did any filming for me was on the day of the big session, which was just under a year and a half ago now at Air Studios. How did you find that?
My God. It was like Christmas and birthday and everything together. I was prepared. Obviously, I always have sort of ideas in my head and concepts, but this is one of these projects that you can't really prepare for. Claire obviously told me a little bit about what to expect: large orchestra, a few isolated booths, and you guys driving it, being in high concentration. And I was just expecting to tiptoe around, set up a few cameras, a few static, a few handheld, and apologize every few seconds to musicians who I might be in the way of. And it ended up being one of the funnest days in my professional life, because I had to just pinch myself constantly and reminding myself that I'm here to work and not just to experience this. Because while you were working, I was the music which was sort of coming together in this amazing orchestra. The sound was already so fantastic. And I knew that this wasn't even remotely obviously mixed together and in any shape or form what will eventually end up being on the album. But it was overwhelming. It was goosebumpy. So I just shoved up with my gear. I'm very sort of, in my approach, very organic. I just had a few cameras that I put into certain corners. I didn't have a concept. Usually the concept develops out of what the situation gives me. And let the cameras run, and occasionally change battery, of course. And then I had a little handheld to capture some close-ups, but also just the work in progress. And I have to say, everyone was so incredibly patient and supportive. Nobody ever complained about me crawling on the floor underneath the sort of the second violins and zooming into people's faces. And including in the control room. And I've been to few studios of small group recordings, which was always extremely exciting for me. But I was always aware that I'm potentially in the way, and I'm not really essential to the recording process here. So I think that mentality helped me a little bit to just stay on that narrow path between being annoying and not getting the shots I want. So it's kind of that wobbly path. It was great. You and Lewis in the control room, you were very sort of relaxed. I got a lot of shots there. Obviously, Claire was isolated, so we had to then later on, when we did the editing, ask her to almost sing the whole thing again.
We did. We filmed her. We filmed her singing it again later, didn't we, to get those shots.
which was great. Yeah, exactly. And I think that makes it all slightly more relaxed because she was obviously completely, I've done it now.
Of course.
Yeah, and then you sent me the big band edits, which we then put together into. I think we ended up with 3 different takes of the whole thing. So we have
we did, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the from the day, and I'm just going to put a link in the chat to where you can watch the video that we ended up on. It's the first video as you go to my website, which I just posted and should appear in a moment. You can also find it on YouTube, though I'm not sure if it's been made public yet on YouTube.
I think it's public. Yeah, I think.
Is it? Okay, I'll fish out the YouTube link as well. That's good.
Yeah, I can maybe find it too.
Yes, see if you can find it, because I'm not sure where it is. Yeah. Yeah. So the where was I at? Yes, the video came out looking amazing, and from that point, I guess we kind of I realized that if that's going to look that good, it's not going to be. Everything else needs to match it, really.
Yeah.
The rest of the packaging, the rest of my website, etc. So I then had you make my website again from the ground up. Which must have been maybe October, November last year, something like that.
Yeah, it was something to sort of took a few weeks, because we obviously had content to be sent backwards and forwards. That was a bit of that obviously wasn't completely Songs and Story branded for 2 reasons. A, we didn't have the look and feel of the album at the time, and it was also something that should last you a little longer and reflect you as an artist, rather than just this project as a microsite. So we did a lot of obviously updating some photos, looking at your catalog, your different personas in a way, because you do so much. You're so, oh my God, just the talent incarnate in a way. But it's amazing. So getting that right and making sure that once we have the album designed, we could just, or the look and feel, whatever, we can just slot that in. And it works perfectly. Yeah, which
it did. So I mean, if you look at how the album design slotted into the website design, it looks like it was designed with that in mind. Which
at the same time,
which actually it wasn't, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And then after that point, we worked on the album cover and the album artwork and so forth, and the branding and graphic design on this particular project to get it looking as good as it does. So tell us a little bit more about how you kind of think about how you would get your graphic design together for something like that. What's the thought process that goes on to get to that point?
In this particular example, I had a huge amount of help from the fantastic Kenny McCracken, the photographer. And that was such a stroke of genius and a kind of a no-brainer to get him involved first. So you and Claire had a photo session there, very, very much with the brief of developing the album cover.
Yes.
And Kenny gave us a sort of a concept even before we turned up. We had great stylists for both you and Claire, and we were all completely bought into this sort of the look and feel, the vibe, the coloring. And he did the shots, and we pretty much had the cover, at least, on the day, I think. We just ended up... Yeah. So at the evening of the shoot, we had the cover. I think we just played around with the font, with the typeface a little bit.
Yeah.
At which point we obviously involved the label, which is only right. And that kind of... And that's how it always works for me. I start with the cover, and that once that's nailed, it then dictates the rest of the look and feel, and it brings it all together. And it should always be connected. It should always be in the tones, in the distribution of text, in the way it's visualized. It should always be coming out of one glove, rather than here's the cover, and as a little bit of an afterthought, now let's stick the album notes into it.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
I think that's, and actually, I'm just going to flash the image up again so that people can see it. as we're talking about it right now. As you can see here, on the left is that is the vinyl album cover, and this was sort of the photo that Kenny McCracken had set up. One really nice touch is the back of the album cover is the same shot, but without Claire and I. Actually, why don't we show them that? I'm going to grab, as I have some CDs now.
It's actually the back of the inside column.
Oh, it's the back of the inside. Okay.
Yeah, so it's I don't know, this is reflecting a little bit. Yeah, I've got it here, but there's a bit of a glare on it. Maybe this is how it works. So this is the empty set.
Yeah.
Yeah, which works really well.
I thought that was a really cool touch.
Yeah, another good idea that Kenny had. And then another thing that I always take care of, and I know that you're on the same page as me with that, is to make everything nice and legible.
Yes.
And that's also something that in my, working with Joe Locke so much, he's exactly the same. You should just be able to read it easily. It shouldn't become one of these vanity things where, tiny, 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 just to be minimalistic. The people who are part of the album, especially your musicians, they deserve to be seen.
Indeed. They need to be seen because the album's a collaborative project. I mean, Claire and I, possibly the most featured people, but without every musician on the album playing as well as they did, you can't have anything that sounds that good. Everyone is so involved that they deserve all the credit they can get, and I love the fact that their names are very visible in both the vinyl and CD versions of some of the stories. And
what an amazing band you put together.
Yeah, well, they
Christ.
They can seriously play.
Yeah.
I mean, it's we're very, very lucky in London to have some of the best studio musicians, some of the best musicians at playing this sort of music in the world. And a lot of the Hollywood films are recorded here. A lot of the when big artists like Michael Bublé, that sort of Diana Krall, that's Gregory Porter, that sort of level of artist, when they record, they're either going to record in LA or they're going to record in London. That's basically the two places that they do these things, unless they've got a very good reason. So the musicians in London on that side of the scene are just spectacular.
I totally agree.
Very fortunate to have them.
Yeah. So that was more or less the design part of it.
Yes.
And there's always a bit of touch and go once you put nice design together to then pass it on to the label and say they then pass it on to their printers.
Mm-hmm.
And few things obviously you avoid, and you kind of just cross your fingers and hope that it comes out the way you want it to look. And I think in this particular case, we've been absolutely over the moon, and it turned out to be such an amazing product, and I'm so proud of it. And I have to say two things. One, congratulations to this fantastic piece of work, but also thank you so much for letting me be part of it, because I feel very much part of it. It's very much
you are.
Thank you.
I mean, it's as I said, the whole design element and that whole side of things, the non-musical side of things, you've basically been entirely responsible for the whole lot. And it really does look amazing. So thank you.
And there's still more to come. We should say that, because we should have already had a big launch concert, of course.
That's true.
Earlier this month.
Which is not so hot at the moment. Big launch concert.
Yeah. But we've just delayed it by a year, right?
We have. That concert will now take place on the 19th of June, 2021. So a year and 2 days from now. Put it in your diaries. You can also pre-order the album from my website, which is going into the comments now. That'll show up in a moment.
Cool.
And we'll be doing other little things as we go along sort of radio spots here and there, little promotional things here and there as they sort of come about. It's very difficult to know exactly what's going to happen at the moment because we don't know what we're going to be allowed to do. As things pan out, as things open up, we hope to have a little bit more of an idea about all that sort of thing.
And there's going to be lots of promotion for the concerts once they start again. So lots of sort of little prompts. So I'm going to get involved in that as well.
Indeed. So do keep an eye out. The next thing I just wanted to have a chat about with you is obviously you've been working on this project for a while, but I'm not your only project. Tell us a little bit about some of the other people you've worked with, some of the other sort of projects and clients and so forth, because I know there are a lot and they're all excellent.
Yeah, they're all. I've been quite lucky because when I got into jazz, like most people, whether they're musicians or not, because I just love the music, and from a very young age, I come from a very musical family. I've been playing as a teenager, and then just loving the music and going to gigs, and eventually befriended and started hanging out with jazz musicians, and realized quite early on that there's something I can give back to the people who create the music I love so much, and by using my skill to help them in the areas where they potentially could have done with a bit of support. And all my clients, all the people I work with, have come in that very organic way by meeting somebody, talking to somebody, getting my first album design done again through Joe, which was very exciting. And people talk, and then the next person needed a website, and that was exactly what I was doing at the time, and I'm still doing. I met Jeffrey Keyser through the trio that they had with Tim Garland. I started working with Jeffrey Keyser also on an album design after I built Joe's website. I have since just collected a great bunch of friends who then also ended up being clients. So I designed Claire's website, I think a couple of years ago now, and which is obviously a dream to just be told by an artist to just build a website for me, and I totally trust you to just get it right and make it work for me. Recently started working with the National Youth Jazz Collective, which is a fabulous bunch of hardworking people. So I feel I'm reaching out to the next generation as well. That's and good. Helping them a little bit with the fundraising, which they need right now. Through a dear friend of mine, Neil Percy, who is the principal percussionist of the London Symphony Orchestra, I've recently started working with LSO Live, which is great. So it's a label that releases all the LSO music.
Great.
A good friend of mine, Christine Allen, who runs the Basho music label, has now been a client for 3 or 4 projects, including Willem Simcock's website. And I've got clients in the States too, so it's not just Joe. I recently started working with Ryan Cohen. In Canada, I'm working with a pianist called Florian Höfner and his wife, Christine Carter, who's a classical clarinetist. And all of these projects always touch, similar to yours, some just websites, some album design website, a lot of video editing I'm doing at the moment. Obviously, there's more video work around than ever before. And I'm getting to the point where I'm just so excited by this portfolio that goes into so many different directions, and it's good fun.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it is. And from the musician's perspective, it's so useful to have somebody who can just do whatever you throw at them, no matter how kind of outlandish or strange a request it might sound, because we don't know how to do any of this stuff. We're hopeless. It's much better to have... Unless you are the fabulous Tommy Smith and the Scottish National Jazz Orchestra, who I'm also working with, and he's one of the rare human beings who is as nerdy as I am,
and wants to learn everything, including video editing and everything. So he sometimes feels like a partner in crime when I talk to him.
I see.
So he's the big exception.
Fair enough. I thought I'd just quickly show a few of the album covers that you've worked on with some of these people. Can everybody see this? Yes, we can. I'm going to somehow full screen it, which I do like that.
Yeah, you might not even have to because it's in a nice column. But yeah, so this is a complete mix. You will see obviously quite a bit of Joe Locke appearing here because I've been working with him for so many years now. But there's a right in the center, The Spirit of Duke, which is the SNJO album that where I worked with original artwork for the first time, which is great. It's a painting as the cover. Top left is Signing. Very proud of that because that was a proper concept album cover where we started with a title and then we tried to find a visualization, a visual language for how to communicate the idea of signing in so many different ways in everyday's life, and ended up with his hand and these sort of overlaid almost henna type or tattoo type images on it. And then in total contrast, sort of in the middle left, Joe's album Love is a Pendulum, where we really reduced it to just a whisker of a nice movement gesture, which you can almost not see in this, but just the swing of a pendulum on this red background. And then the fun Peter and the Wolf, SNJO, again, they're fantastic Scottish adaptation of Sergei Prokofiev's classical piece.
Peter and
that was fun. Yeah, Peter and the, exactly, it's almost that. Yeah, and then there's some others in between, so I'm proud of all of them.
It actually sounds a bit like a bagpipe tune. Up to there, it sounds like a bagpipe tune. It could be.
It does. You could easily do that. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Don't give anyone any ideas here, man.
No. Great. So just before we finish, and I've got something to show everyone, a video of the song Who Killed Davey Moore, which is absolutely fantastic, that Nadja worked on. Tell us a bit about that.
I'm first of all, it's my first proper music video as such. So it's not an EPK, it's not a concert footage, it's a music video. And I'm proud of it because it's first of all, it's a great story. And I'm not giving anything away, and that would be a little bit long now, so everyone can look up Davey Moore and what happened to him in the 60s. He's a boxer. And it's obviously based on that Dylan song. But we got so many people involved who we really like and who just joined in. And the idea is that they're all lip syncing to Raoul Midon's singing.
Yes.
So the vocalist is Raoul Midon, but we got Claire Martin, Ian Shaw as part of it, a few friends of mine who just said, yeah, obviously we're going to we sing a little bit or lip sync a little bit. We have Jeff Tane Watts at the end being the manager. He's been fantastic throughout, and they just appear in the video, and we used old footage, new footage, and put it together. And it was just fun making it. And
I noticed Claire's daughter's basketball team as well. That's a nice little Easter egg.
Amelia is in it too. Exactly. I've forgotten so many people now. I'm sorry for everyone who I haven't mentioned now, but yes, it was a real kind of a very positive, uplifting way of making a video. It was great.
Yeah, it's very cool, and we'll watch it in just a moment. But before we do, thank you, Nadja, once again for coming on for a chat. Apologies for the delayed stream start, which was not our fault. We're having increasing technical issues on this platform, and I really don't quite know why, but maybe next time I'll just check to begin with rather than 12 minutes later what's going on.
Yeah, sorry.
And do pre-order the album. It's the link is in my in the comments, and if you're interested in any of what Nadja's got to offer, check out her website, which is also making its way into the comments. I can highly recommend it. It's really great. There it
Thanks.
is. So thank you once again, and enjoy Who Killed Davey Moore. Here it comes.
Amazing. Thanks, Callum. Bye.
Thanks, Nadia. See you later.
Come it down, and what's the reason for? Now I said the referee, don't point your finger at me. Sure could have stopped it in the eighth and kept him from his tragic fate. But the crowd would have booed, I'm sure, at not getting their money's worth. Too bad he had to go, but there was pressure on me, you know. It wasn't me who made him fall. You can't blame me at all. Who killed Davey Moore? How come he died, and what's the reason for? Not us, said the angry crowd who screams, fill the ring out loud. Too bad he died that night, but we just want to see a good clean fight. You can't blame us for his death, we just like to see some sweat. It wasn't us who made him fall, you can't blame us at all. Who killed Davey Moore? How come he died, and what's the reason for? What's the reason for? coming down, and what's the reason for? Now I said the manager, puffing on his big cigar. It's hard to say, it's hard to tell. I always thought that he was well. Too bad for his wife, he's dead. But if he was sick, he should have said it wasn't me who made him fall. You can't blame me at all. Who killed Davey Moore? How come he died, and what's the reason for? What's the reason for? Nine eyes said the man whose fist laid him low in a cloud of mist, who came from another shore where boxing ain't allowed no more. I hit him, yes it's true, but that's what I was paid to do. Don't say murder, don't say kill, it was God's will. Who killed Davey Moore? How come he died, and what's the reason?